When we started Pioneers of Change, one of the key things was that we wanted to create a form of organization that didn't exist, that was different from the way that traditional hierarchies and bureaucracies manage people. And we wanted it to be an organism that would give freedom to people and that would bring out our creativity and our idealism and give space for people's ideas. And that's why we started talking about self-organization as the form of organizing of Pioneers of Change. And when we talk about self-organization, we're partly looking at learning from nature in the sense that nature doesn't have presidents and it has hierarchies, but it doesn't have managers. And every seed and every element in nature has something that it's wanting to become, and it's in relation to everything else. It has a role that it needs to play, and everything else is dependent on it. And so we're trying to find parallels from that with how human beings could organize, and we're trying as best we can to organize in that way in Pioneers of Change, to acknowledge what each person wants to become and what each person has to bring and how they can become that in relation to others. And so Pioneers of Change is a learning community, and everything we do as Pioneers of Change activities are learning activities, but they're all empowering people who are active in their daily work and who don't separate reflection from action in that daily work. There isn't a time for talking and a time for walking. It's really acting with reflection and practicing your ideas. Because with Pioneers of Change, what we're trying to learn is something that's deeply personal, because we're learning about our specific role, and we're learning about what needs to happen now and in the future that's different from what people have been doing before. And because of that deeply personal learning, it has to be embedded in our story and in our context. And so we have to come up with our own questions, because no one else can know our specific story, and no one else can know our specific combination of skills and talents and passions. And so we each phrase our own or formulate our own questions and our own learning needs. But by sharing those with others and by sharing our stories with others, others from the Pioneers of Change community and elsewhere become teachers for us. When people in Pioneers of Change become teachers, they become teachers because we've invited them to be our teachers. It's not someone outside of us who's defining what we need to know. It's really ourselves requesting and articulating what we need to know, and then others stepping forward to serve those learning needs. We've translated our thinking about self-organizing into some principles that we work with in Pioneers of Change, such as that the network is powered from the periphery, that decisions are taken by the people who are affected, that no part of the network can compel behavior from another part outside of itself, and that we embrace diversity and so on. And it's actually quite a challenge, because people aren't used to organizing around such principles. They're not used to self-organizing. And we've all been taught through school and through the organizations we work with to follow orders and to work with principles of control. And so when we introduce these principles, we actually all have to be very consciously practicing them and reminding each other of the self-organizing nature of Pioneers of Change, that things have to come, that all our activities have to come from our own intentions, and we have to own the projects that we run, we have to own the activities that we run. You can't expect that the idea that you think is brilliant, someone else is going to make happen. You have to take ownership of making it happen if it's your idea and it's your intention. As a self-organizing learning community, global learning community, we have different kinds of structures and programs that evolve in practicing being a learning community. One of those is local learning communities, where people in a specific place gather as a local learning community of Pioneers of Change. And then across boundaries we have what we call communities of practice, which are people who are working in a similar field or have a similar issue of interest can share experiences and tools and questions and answers and support each other's work. Our knowledge is constantly changing, and our knowledge needs are constantly changing, and knowledge is a living thing. It's not something that can be stored in databases or in books, really. It's constantly evolving, and it's contextual. And so when we work with communities of practice in Pioneers of Change, you have a network of people who you know are working in a similar field who can constantly serve as a source of knowledge. And the knowledge that they have is endless, really. So by approaching the people, rather than searching whatever has been extracted from those people and already put into a database, you have an access to a much wider scope of knowledge, but also a much more living knowledge, because you're acknowledging that knowledge exists in people. Learning journeys are a specific kind of program that we host, where we bring people from different countries to one specific place which has a rich field of experience to share in social innovation. And so, for example, it's been topics like critical education, conflict resolution or post-conflict reconstruction and community building, arts and social change, and self-rule and self-organization, and different topics. Will visit a certain country or community that has something to teach us, and we'll learn from that place as well as from each other and from our reflections on what we're seeing. Part of what's powerful about the learning journeys is that we learn as much from each other as from the people we engage with on the journey from the specific place. And it's in creating a shared experience for diverse people, a shared, intense, real-life experience, and then enabling them to share what they've seen in their diversity. You realize that you can learn, 25 times more than what you can see on your own when you share the lenses with people who come from a completely different background and a completely different story. Oh, we really don't believe in recipes. We really believe in contextual knowledge and contextual solutions to challenges. I mean, I don't believe that a certain methodology or model can be replicated across contexts as a recipe and just copied and pasted like you do on a computer. It's what we try and do is when we go and learn from something that's successful in a specific place, that's innovative and that's working, we don't only look at what was done and how it works, but we look at what context it works in. Why is this methodology working in this place? What is it about this place and these people that enabled this to work and that enabled this idea to come up in this place? And then looking at, well, how is my context in South Africa or in Indonesia or Brazil different from this context in Croatia we're visiting right now? What are the factors that I need to pay attention to when I return back home? And how am I different from the people who gave birth to this initiative here? My actions are not only for me, and they're not only for society, but they're actually for friends that I know are also making an effort, and none of us can change the world on our own. But we're each playing a small part, and we each hold a piece of the puzzle. And I know that the pieces that they hold can't be valuable without my piece also being in there. And that kind of trust and that kind of awareness and that kind of relationship is only built when there is community.